Millions of years from now, long after every trace of our cities has crumbled into dust, whatever comes after us may go digging through the layers of rock that we left behind. And when they reach the thin band of stone that marks our age, the age of humans, they will find one creature buried there more than any other. It will not be us, it will be a bird. Packed into the rock, in numbers almost beyond counting, they will find the bones of chickens. Billions upon billions of them, all nearly identical, scattered across every continent on Earth. Future scientists, sifting through the fossil record, may well decide that the clearest signal of our entire civilization, the fossil that defines the human epoch, is the humble chicken. And they would be right to, because right now, at this very moment, there are over 20 billion chickens alive on this planet. They are, by a huge margin, the most numerous bird on Earth. In fact, the meat chicken now outweighs every wild bird in the world combined, roughly 3 times over. Every year, humans raise and kill somewhere around 70 billion of them. There is no animal on the surface of the planet, no wild creature, no other farmed beast that comes close to the sheer staggering scale of the chicken. But here is the strange part. The bird sitting on your plate is not a natural animal. It is something we built. A creature so reshaped by human hands that it can no longer really survive on its own. To understand how a shy jungle bird became the most numerous bird in the history of the world and a living monument to the power of humankind, we have to go back thousands of years to the edge of a rice field in Southeast Asia. This is the history of chicken. Our story begins with a wild bird called the red junglefowl. If you saw one today, you might not even recognize it as the ancestor of the chicken. It is a lean, wary, brilliantly colored bird, the male flashing deep red and golden green that still runs wild in the forests of Southeast Asia. It can fly, it roosts in trees, it is fast, nervous, and built to survive. It was the great naturalist Charles Darwin who first argued that this striking jungle bird was the true ancestor of every chicken alive today, and modern genetics has proven him right. For a long time, scientists believed chickens were domesticated many thousands of years ago, but recent research has pushed that story to a surprisingly recent and very specific beginning. It seems the chicken was truly born only around 3,500 years ago, and it happened because of another crop, rice. As early farmers in Southeast Asia, in what is now Thailand and the surrounding region, began planting fields of rice and millet, they created something irresistible to the wild junglefowl: a steady, easy supply of grain. The birds, drawn out of the deep forest by the promise of food, began lingering around human settlements, feeding in the fields, growing bolder and more familiar with people. Slowly, over generations, the wild junglefowl and the human became partners. The chicken had arrived, and here is the detail that surprises almost everyone. At first, the chicken was not kept for its meat at all. When these early domesticated birds spread outward from Southeast Asia, carried along trade routes across Asia and beyond, they traveled not as food, but as something far more special. They were exotic, they were treasured, they were kept as curiosities, as symbols of wealth and status, as sacred animals, and above all, for their fierce and thrilling talent for combat. For much of early history, the chicken was prized not for the meal it could provide, but for the spectacle of the cockfight, and for the strange power of the rooster whose crow could split the darkness and announce the coming of the sun. That reputation as a magical, almost supernatural bird would follow the chicken across the ancient world. As chickens spread west, they reached the great civilizations of the ancient Mediterranean. In Egypt, people mastered the astonishing trick of artificial incubation, building vast ovens that could hatch thousands of eggs at once without a single hen, a technology so impressive that visitors could scarcely believe it. In Greece, the bird was sometimes called the Persian bird, a sign of how far it had traveled to get there. Cockfighting became a serious business, so serious that some Greek cities built dedicated arenas for it, using the courage of fighting roosters to teach young soldiers about valor. But it was in ancient Rome that the chicken reached the strange peak of its sacred power. Because the Romans did not just eat chickens or fight them, they used them to see the future. The Romans kept flocks of sacred chickens tended by special priests, and they carried these birds with them, even into war. Before a major decision, especially before a battle, the priests would perform a ritual. They would offer the sacred chickens food and watch very carefully how they ate. If the birds gobbled the grain eagerly, dropping bits from their beaks, it was a powerful good omen. The gods approved. But if the chickens refused to eat, that was a dire warning. The gods were against them. This brings us to one of the most remarkable stories in all of Roman history. In the year 249 before the Common Era, during a great war against Carthage, a Roman admiral named Publius Claudius Pulcher prepared to launch a surprise attack on the enemy fleet at a place called Drepana. As was the custom, the sacred chickens were brought out and the grain was offered. But the chickens would not eat. It was the worst possible omen. The gods were telling him not to fight. Pulcher was furious. He had a fleet ready and an enemy in sight, and he would not be stopped by a few fussy birds. And so, in a fit of rage that Romans would talk about for centuries, he seized the sacred chickens and hurled them overboard into the sea, snarling, "If they will not eat, then let them drink." Then he sailed into battle anyway. It was a catastrophe. The Battle of Drepana became one of the worst naval defeats in all of Roman history. The Roman fleet was shattered, thousands of men were lost, and Pulcher's career and reputation were destroyed. To the Romans, the lesson was clear. The man who threw the sacred chickens into the sea had defied the will of the gods and paid for it in blood. A flock of birds, in the Roman mind, had decided the fate of a fleet. While the chicken was conquering the Mediterranean, it was also spreading in the opposite direction, across the largest ocean on Earth. The great seafaring peoples of the Pacific, the Austronesians, carried chickens with them in their canoes as they voyaged across thousands of miles of open water, island hopping all the way from Southeast Asia out into the vast Pacific. Alongside pigs and dogs, the chicken was one of the animals these master navigators packed for the journey. A portable, self-reproducing food source for settling brand new lands. And this may have led to one of the great mysteries of the chicken's history. On the coast of Chile, in South America, archaeologists have found chicken bones that some believe date to before Columbus ever reached the Americas. If they are right, it would mean that Polynesian sailors crossing the Pacific in wooden canoes may have carried chickens to the shores of South America centuries before any European arrived. The idea is still debated by scientists, but it hints at just how far and how early this remarkable little bird had already traveled, carried to the very ends of the earth by human hands. The rooster, in particular, became one of the most powerful symbols in all of human culture. Its crow marked the boundary between night and day, between danger and safety, and so it came to stand for vigilance, for the triumph of light over darkness, and for the arrival of each new dawn. Roosters appear in the myths and religions of countless peoples. They perch on weather vanes turning in the wind. They crow in ancient stories and sacred texts. They stand as emblems of courage, pride, and watchfulness across cultures that never even met. For a creature that would one day be reduced to a number on a factory line, the chicken once carried an enormous weight of meaning. It was a bird wrapped in magic and ritual. And yet, for all this early glory, the chicken remained, for thousands of years, a fairly minor animal in the daily diet. The birds people kept in their yards were small, tough and scrawny by our standards, valued mostly for their eggs, for the rooster's crow, and for the fight. A chicken dinner was often a special occasion, a bird eaten only when it had grown too old to lay, or to mark a celebration. For almost its entire history, the chicken was a bit player. The idea that it would one day become the most numerous bird on Earth, cheaper than almost any other meat, would have seemed absurd. What the chicken did do, over those long centuries, was quietly spread into nearly every corner of the inhabited world. It asked for very little. It could feed itself on scraps and insects and seeds. It needed almost no space, and it turned that humble diet into eggs and, eventually, meat. When European ships carried animals and crops around the globe in the age of exploration, the chicken went with them, joining the farmyards of the Americas and mixing with the birds already spread across Africa and Asia. By the modern era, there was scarcely a village or a homestead anywhere on Earth without a few chickens scratching in the yard. It may well have been the most widespread domestic animal in the world. And still, in almost every one of those places, it remained a small thing, a background creature, a source of a few eggs and the occasional Sunday dinner. Useful, familiar, and entirely ordinary. Nobody looked at the scrawny bird pecking in the dirt and imagined an empire of flesh. That transformation, the one that changed everything, would come with breathtaking speed, and it would happen in a single century, the 20th. For all of history up to that point, chickens had lived more or less natural lives, scratching in the dirt and the sun. But in the early 1900s, a series of discoveries quietly set the stage for a revolution. Scientists learned that adding a certain vitamin, vitamin D, to a chicken's feed meant the birds no longer needed sunlight to stay healthy. And that single fact unlocked a terrible new possibility. For the first time, chickens could be raised entirely indoors, in vast numbers, packed into enclosed sheds all year round. Then came the moment that truly created the modern chicken. In 1948, in the United States, a grand competition was launched, backed by the government and a major grocery chain. They called it the Chicken of Tomorrow. The goal was simple and ambitious: to breed a new kind of bird, one that grew faster than ever before, on less feed, with an enormous meaty breast, a chicken chunky enough to feed a whole family, with meat you could carve like a steak. Breeders across the country competed to build this bird of the future, and they succeeded beyond anyone's imagination. Combining aggressive selective breeding with the new indoor farming, with special high-energy feed, and with antibiotics to keep densely packed flocks alive, the industry created something the world had never seen: the modern broiler chicken. And the numbers behind this new bird are almost hard to believe. A chicken in the wild, or on an old-fashioned farm, might take the better part of a year to reach a decent size. The modern broiler reaches full slaughter weight in around 6 weeks. 6 weeks from egg to dinner. It is roughly 4 to 5 times the size of a chicken from the middle of the 20th century. Its breast is so heavy and it grows so fast that its own legs and heart can barely keep up. Many of these birds struggle to walk under their own ballooning weight. They live short, strange lives in enormous windowless sheds holding tens of thousands of birds at a time, engineered from the moment they hatch to do one thing: grow as fast as physically possible. The scale of it is difficult to even picture. A single large broiler operation can raise hundreds of thousands of birds at once, and the biggest companies process millions of chickens every week. Inside these long, dim barns, the birds live out their entire 6-week lives on a floor they will never leave, under artificial light tuned to keep them eating around the clock. They are born, they balloon in size, and they are gone, all in less time than it would take a wild chick just to reach its adult feathers. It is an astonishing feat of engineering. It is also, for many people, a deeply uncomfortable one. We had turned a living animal into something much closer to a crop, planted and harvested on a schedule by the billion. This was the birth of the cheapest meat in human history. And it changed the way the world eats. But cheapness alone does not explain why the chicken, of all animals, conquered the world so completely. The bird had other quiet advantages that no rival could match. For one, the chicken is astonishingly efficient. Pound for pound, it turns feed into meat far better than a cow or a pig. A cow may eat many pounds of grain to add a single pound of body weight. A modern chicken does it on a small fraction of that. It needs less land, less water, and far less time than any large farm animal, which makes it the cheapest possible way to turn crops like corn and soy into meat. And then there is a subtler reason, one that stretches across cultures and faiths. The world is full of food rules. Some people do not eat pork, some do not eat beef, but almost no major religion or culture forbids the chicken. It is, in a sense, the universal meat, welcome on nearly every table on Earth. A food company hoping to sell one single product to the entire planet could hardly design a better animal. Efficient, cheap, fast, and accepted almost everywhere. The chicken was the perfect crop of flesh for a globalized world. Before the 1950s, chicken was a treat. After it, chicken became the default. As the price collapsed and the supply exploded, chicken consumption climbed and climbed decade after decade all around the globe. It overtook pork, it overtook beef. Today, chicken is the most commonly eaten meat on the entire planet, the first choice for billions of people, from fast food buckets to home kitchens to street stalls in every country on Earth. Nothing spread the chicken across the globe faster than fast food. In the middle of the 20th century, an American named Harlan Sanders turned a roadside recipe for fried chicken into one of the most recognizable brands on the planet, and the bucket of fried chicken became a global icon. Fried chicken chains marched into country after country, and in many places the arrival of that famous fried bird became a symbol of modern life itself. In some nations, fried chicken took root so deeply that it became woven into local traditions and celebrations, sometimes in ways that had nothing to do with where it first came from. The chicken, already the most adaptable of animals, proved just as adaptable on the plate, slipping effortlessly into cuisines all over the world. And we have been talking only about meat. But the chicken gives us a second gift, one just as vital: the egg. Alongside the meat birds, humans transformed a separate line of chickens into laying machines of astonishing productivity. A wild junglefowl hen might lay a dozen or so eggs in a year, just enough to raise a single clutch of chicks. A modern laying hen produces around 300 eggs a year, nearly one every single day, an output nature never intended. Across the world, hens now lay well over 1 trillion eggs every year, an almost unimaginable river of food flowing from this one small bird. Like the broiler, the laying hen was pushed to its limits by industry, often kept in enormous numbers in tightly packed cages, bred and fed to squeeze out the maximum number of eggs. Between its meat and its eggs, the chicken quietly became one of the most important sources of protein for the entire human species, feeding billions of people twice over, at breakfast and at dinner. The chicken's gifts go even further than food. For over a century, the chicken egg has also been one of the most important tools in all of science. The developing chick inside the egg gave early biologists a window into how life itself takes shape, and it remains a workhorse of research to this day. Most remarkably, the ordinary chicken egg became a factory for medicine. Each year, when the seasonal flu vaccine is made, much of it is quietly grown inside hundreds of millions of chicken eggs. The same humble bird that fills our dinner plates also helps shield our species from disease, a quiet debt that most people never even realize they owe. Which brings us back, at last, to that pile of bones far in the future and to the astonishing scale of the present. Today, there are over 20 billion chickens alive at any given moment. To put that in perspective, that is more than the population of every other bird species on Earth put together, several times over. The meat chicken has become the single most numerous bird in the history of the world, and quite possibly the most numerous it will ever be. Scientists who study the deep future of the planet, the record we will leave in the rock, have looked at this bird and reached a striking conclusion. The modern broiler chicken is so different from anything that came before, its bones so distinct, its numbers so vast, that it stands as one of the clearest signals of the entire age of humans. A brand new kind of creature, created in mere decades, appearing suddenly all over the world, and then buried by the billions. In a very real sense, we are living on the planet of the chickens. This bird, which we lured out of a rice field 3,500 years ago, and and reshaped so completely that it can barely stand, has become a living symbol of our power to remake the natural world entirely to our own appetite. But a planet ruled by 20 billion nearly identical birds carries a hidden danger. The same danger we have seen with crops bred into sameness. When billions of animals are packed together, genetically similar, in enormous flocks, they become a perfect breeding ground for disease. In recent years, powerful strains of bird flu have swept through poultry populations around the world, and to contain them, farmers have been forced to cull hundreds of millions of chickens at a time. Scientists warn that these vast uniform flocks could even become a launching pad for a dangerous new virus, one that might one day leap to humans. The very system that made chicken so cheap and so abundant has also made it fragile and possibly perilous. There is a cost, too, in what it takes to feed this endless appetite. The mountains of grain grown to feed the world's chickens, the land cleared, the water consumed, the waste produced, all of it leaves a heavy mark on the planet. The chicken may be efficient compared to a cow, but multiplied by 70 billion birds a year, even a small footprint becomes an enormous one. So think about the whole journey. A wary, brilliant jungle bird flying between the trees of Southeast Asia, coaxed into partnership by fields of rice, carried across the ancient world not as food, but as a sacred creature, a fighter and a fortune teller that Roman admirals took to war. A minor barnyard animal for thousands of years, and then, in the space of a single human lifetime, transformed into a 6-week miracle of flesh, grown by the tens of billions in the dark, until it became the most numerous bird that has ever lived, and the fossil that will one day mark the fact that we were here at all. You almost certainly ate one recently without giving it a single thought. A nugget, a wing, a breast, a bucket. It is the most ordinary food imaginable, and it is, at the same time, one of the most extraordinary things our species has ever made. A bird that conquered the entire planet, not by its own strength, but because we willed it into being, one hatchery at a time. The next time you pass a farm or unwrap a piece of chicken, remember what you are really holding. Not just dinner, the single most successful and most transformed bird in the history of life on Earth. If this story surprised you, subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden histories behind the everyday things all around you. Drop a like if you learned something new, and leave a comment telling me which part of the chicken story surprised you the most. There is a lot more history still waiting to hatch.